Welcome to Genizus Podcast, where we dive into the dynamic world generational conversation with your host, John, the baby boomer, along with Jessica, the millennial, and Joey, the Gen Z. Hello, everybody. I'm John, and this is the Genizus Podcast. I'm the boomer, and today's show is a special one. It's for boomers, or it's about boomers, the baby boomer generation. So today, it's all boomers. I've got Julia, our producer. She's behind the board, and she is a boomer. And then we have a special guest on the line. Her name is Sonia, and she's hello, and she's also a boomer. So today we were going to go back into nostalgia and talk a little about being a boomer. Obviously, growing up at that time, we all grew up through the 70s and 80s, and obviously 90s. And there's a lot of things that we're going to cover. Hopefully we can cover in 45 minutes. But I mean, talking about that era or that generation, there's a lot. And I was talking to everybody off the camera when we were prepping for the show about how the 80s, which, I was in high school. I believe Julia and Sonia were also in high school, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So I believe that the 80s were probably the best time of any generation, I think, because we saw so much. I mean, it was, the music, the movies, it was just a colorful time, and it was kind of a time where it was like a
party era.
Right. It was a rebirth before that was like the 70s and 60s. We had gone through wars and through Vietnam, and we went through recession, protests, all sorts of stuff. So I think that when the 80s hit, it was like a rebirth. There were so many good bands. I mean, there's a lot of real good bands in the 70s. In fact, some of my favorite bands are from the 70s. So anyway,
like what?
For me, Oh my God, one of my favorite bands is Led Zeppelin.
Wait, isn't it yours, Sonia?
That is absolutely mine as well. I think to John, your point, it's right with so many great bands, but I think a lot of these great bands, while they started out in the 70s, they actually hit their peak and they were at their best in the 80s.
Right.
And it was just a time of access, of partying, of, like Julia mentioned. And it was a time where, the rules were bent and so many things were just excused, with the whole rock and roll culture. And they were just let free to create. And it was a time of a lot of freedom, really.
Right. And I think that a lot of boomers out there will kind of agree with all of us that, that was just like a time of rebirth for the nation. And like I said, because things were so bad prior to that. And then afterwards, you've got Gen X's, you've got millennials and Gen Z now. And, we could do a whole thing on them. But, I think the place where we're at, because the adage I think is true that like the new 50s or the 50s are like the new 50s is like being a 30-year-old and a 60-year-old is like a 40-year-old and that kind of thing. I mean, I'm in my 60s, so I don't feel the way my dad and my mom probably felt. You know what I mean? Because they came from a different era. They were before the baby boomers. So what they were going through were completely different. And so I think I feel a little bit more younger and just more energetic and with all my faculties. I mean, thank God, but then I think, like I said, like our parents, right?
Agreed.
Well, I feel young at heart. Young at heart, but I don't necessarily physically feel.
Well, yeah. Julia's going through some health issues, so yeah. So she's. Thank God. I mean, I have some health issues too, and I'm sure Sonia does.
Yeah.
But I think that our mindset and our energy level is probably a little better than most of our parents and people that, that we have preceded. So by that's what I mean, and hopefully that'll continue for a couple more years or a decade or whatever. But, as a baby boomer, I look at life as not like nonstop. I learned so much, from what I've gone through and my experiences, and it's made me a better person. We've all gone through, tough times and all that. So, and I think we all believe that, our time is not over. And even though we're boomers and they kind of categorize us as, the older generation now. But I think that our generation still has a voice, and I think we're strong. And, all those other generations that are after us, I think, could learn a lot from us.
Yes.
Right.
I do.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
So let's talk a little about how we all grew up. Okay, so I grew up. I'm Mexican American. I'm first generation Mexican American, and I was born in Blue Island, Illinois, and from there we lived in Stone Park, and from Stone Park we then went to Villa Park. And the reason we left Stone Park is because our basement flooded, and rats were coming up out of the wall and all that. And Mom and Dad said, "This is it. We're not going to live in a place like this." And so they packed up the old panel wagon, and we all took off, and we went to find a new place. And we ended up in Villa Park, and that's where I grew up. I grew up a suburbanite. And we had our tough times in Villa Park because we were like the first Hispanics in that area. So there was a lot of discrimination. I can't tell you how many times we were, it was tough. I mean, it was bad. We had kids that would throw bags of dog poop at our house. And, in school, me and my older sister were the ones that really kind of opened the door for my other siblings because we had to put up with a lot of discrimination at our school. Mm-hmm. And we went to St. Alexander's in Villa Park, and they were just mean to us. And I think in prior podcasts, I've said, that I had Sister Mother Mary, ugly, with the mustache, had a ruler, and she basically had that ruler, and it was for me. Not because I was a bad boy or anything like that. I was a little slow, I'll be honest with you, but that's because of the language barrier, because of speaking Spanish and English at home.
You would never know it today.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm thank God for my parents, because they sent me to good schools, and I'm fairly educated, So, we had a tough time. I mean, I'm hopefully one of these days I'll write a book on my experiences and all that. But it was a tough time. I remember one time my dad, he had a .357 Magnum, and kids were coming at our house, and they were throwing stuff at it. And my dad had enough. He just shot into the air and scared the crap out of these little fuckers. And they ran so hard that one of them broke their leg. And guess what? We never saw them again. That was it.
There they go.
And there was a lot of respect for us.
Well, sometimes that's what they need.
Right. So that's just the way we grew up in Villa Park. How about you, Sonia? How about you, Sonia? What things did you experience as a baby boomer growing up in the city? And what part of the city did you grow up in?
Well, we lived originally, I'm born and bred in Chicago, in the city. My parents initially were living on Wells in Ohio. At that time, it wasn't what Wells in Ohio currently is.
Oh my God!
It was
Wells in Ohio.
It was very industrial area, actually, and you can tell by some of the older structures that are there that are now lofts and condos and everything. But they were factories, and so you had a lot of immigrant population within that area. And, my family was one of those. And in 1969, when I was still very little, my dad bought a house in Wicker Park. And again, Wicker Park at that time was not what Wicker Park is right now. And so, but it was an area that was in transition. So when we moved in, we were one of three Latino families that had begun to migrate into that area. And it was predominantly white. And so like you, John, my family faced a lot of racism to the point where my mother and my brother, more specifically, because they're a bit darker skinned than I am, they were called the N-word. And I was little and I didn't quite understand what that term meant, but I knew it wasn't anything good. Like when we would walk by, they would spit. There were certain children that weren't allowed to play with my brother or I. But then we also had people who, did embrace us and talk to us. And even some of the white residents were very nice to my family. And I think over time, when they figured out that we were not the people they thought we were, things lightened up. And then, after time, you had the influx of more Latinos moving into that community. And then it did go through a phase where it wasn't the safest neighborhood. And so, and then obviously now into this transition, but I did live there up until, so I was 20, and then I've always stayed, I mostly stayed within that area, Ukrainian Village, Bucktown. Very recently moved to the south side. Well, not recently, it's actually been like 12 years now.
Wow.
But you did see everything. Again, like you, John, I did go to Catholic school, so I am a survivor. I'm a fellow survivor. That wasn't easy. And it wasn't easy regardless of what color you were. I mean, that's just the way Catholic school was. The corporal punishment and things like that. But it was a means to an end. And I think we turned out okay, considering. And so I think my parents as immigrants did really want to instill not only our heritage and for us, as children not to lose that, but then also, kind of assimilate into the American way of life. I've given that a lot more reflection as I've gotten older, and I have to give credit to mostly my mom, because, traditionally dads just worked and, didn't have much to do with the kids, in terms of too many activities and things like that. They did, but it was more limited. But just to embrace some of the things, that were more predominantly, American. And so whether it was the food or, the obviously the language and some of those just nuances, like we got to not only eat, our traditional Mexican food, but we also got to try some of, I remember toaster pizza. And that was just the weirdest thing. I have no recollection what the brand was, what company made it, but I know it was these little round discs. You stuck them in a toaster, and to me they were the greatest thing. And my mom did let us experiment with like the Chef Boyardee and the ravioli, spaghettios, and things like that were probably against everything that she wanted to feed us, but because our friends ate it and we were exposed to that. So
how did you learn English, Sona?
In school, and from my brother. My brother is older, so Spanish was spoken at home.
Right.
So did you have a hard time? See, like with me, I had a hard time, I guess, translating and using the English language with the Spanish language, because my parents would speak Spanish at home, and as we grew up, we spoke English to them, and they understood us. So it was really weird. Even people to this day think, how is that even possible that you speak Spanish to them and they speak and we speak English to them and they speak Spanish to us, and we all understood each other. But that's the way it worked for us.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that was definitely a thing. I was forced to speak Spanish to my parents. They wouldn't answer me if I spoke to them in English
Oh,
because they didn't want me to forget my Spanish. But my brother, I think, was my biggest help because, with him and his friends, and then he and I ended up speaking English. That's how I learned. By the time I went to school, I spoke English, to his credit, and his friends. And then back in the day, it was also we were sent outside to play. We were, you did your chores, you went outside, and you couldn't be, or at least I couldn't be, in and out of the house. And that old cliche of you come home or you are inside your house when the street lights come on. That was true. It was, you had to be visible if they wanted to see you. You couldn't just wander off. But
Not
um,
nowadays.
yeah, and everything is structured now. Like, that's not the childhood I had. You were outside, and so that group of friends and the neighborhood kids, that's how you picked up language and your social skills.
so you didn't have any problems transitioning, going to school and all that and having problems
Mm-mm.
with, no?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No.
Fun fact. See, I know Sonia from high school.
Right.
We went to high school, so I've known her 40 plus years. And she went with one of our other friends that we've known through high school to grammar school. So she's known her since the 3rd grade.
Oh, okay.
And she's also Hispanic. So yeah, I guess the school you went to, grammar school, which grammar school was it, Sonia?
Annunciation?
Okay.
Yeah, it no longer exists.
Well, I think a lot of the schools that,
A lot of schools, yeah.
I mean, St. Alexander's, I think, does still exist. But it might just be the church. I don't know if the school actually still exists. I know that the military school I went to, when I punched a nun, doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. So I mean, so I know that there are some schools. The school that my sister went to in Nauvoo, Illinois, St. Mary's, that doesn't exist. So
I don't think our high school exists anymore, Holy Family Academy.
No, it's a Montessori school, I think.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of different changes throughout our lives, but going back to growing up.
But that's what the 70s are.
Well,
the
yeah.
70s were a lot of, there's a lot of prejudice and a lot of protests and a lot of, prejudice going on. That is, what everyone overcame in like the 80s and the 90s. And then all of a sudden now we're back because of our stupid administration. But I mean, we were able to, I grew up differently.
Right.
I grew up in the city. I was born not far from Clementi High School. I was born on Levitt and was born in a house. And so from there, we lived actually in a house, an apartment that was on the backside of a school that no longer exists called Shalai, that was knocked down in place to build Clementi High School. So because they were building Clementi, they paid like my mom and that to move. So we ended up moving to this place like Hamlin and Augusta, which was a predominantly Italian neighborhood. So when we moved in, my mom, unlike your parents, did not teach us Spanish. She yelled at us in Spanish. So my mom and dad spoke in Spanish to each other, and they yelled at us in Spanish, but they did not teach us as much Spanish because my mom, when she grew up, there was so much prejudice against her mom, who only spoke Spanish, where they were actually taken away and put in an orphanage because they said it was child neglect that her mom did not know how to speak English. Eventually they got out, but then she vowed that English would be our first language.
See, you grew up in, obviously in that situation. My parents were completely different. They wanted us to speak Spanish, but they didn't push it. They didn't say, okay, you had to learn this, whatever. We learned it on our own because they would speak Spanish to us, and we either had to learn it or we didn't. And then when we went to school, I think that's why I had a problem with it, or had problems in school because, the two languages. In my head, I was like trying to decipher, the language barriers and all that. And my parents were never harsh on us or never really forced us to learn Spanish or anything like that. We just learned it on our own.
Yeah, she just made talk to us in English. My dad had a really heavy accent. It was kind of funny. My friends, Sonia and them, try to teach me Spanish.
Yeah, it's amazing that
sometimes they would, kid me and have me say wrong things.
Well, Sonia, are you very fluent in Spanish?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I read, write. Yeah.
Oh, see, I can speak
Her
Spanish.
brother too. Everything.
See, my sister Beatrice, she knew how to speak Spanish and she knew how to write Spanish. She was very good. I think everybody else in the family, after her. I mean, I learned it in school because I took Spanish, believe it or not, in high school, which is funny.
I did too. I aced.
Yeah, but I mean, I aced it. I mean, so it was funny. It's funny because my daughter took Spanish and she did not do well in Spanish, but she didn't get a lot of Spanish speaking either because she grew up at a time where my parents were older and she was going back and forth between my ex-wife and myself and all that. So she wasn't getting a good Spanish teaching or education or whatever. See, I did. I grew up in a Spanish home and I learned everything. And then my parents would watch Mexican TV, Sábado Gigante, and we would watch that every Saturday with my parents. And my dad liked the wrestling and stuff like that. So we would.
Oh yeah, we would too. I mean, we watched novelas with my mom.
Yeah, me and my mom. When I was a kid, I would sit there in front of TV with my mom, and that was our bonding time. When I was a child, we'd watch the telenovelas. So we'd both be crying after like the ending of the novela.
But that's one of the things that's to the boomers. You had one TV. And everyone had to watch the same program.
Right.
You didn't get a choice.
Right.
You didn't have cable. It was free TV.
Right.
And you had to watch whoever controlled it. And it was usually the parents that controlled the TV.
Well, yeah.
We had a small one in the kitchen that eventually the kids could watch cartoons when we got home from school. But other than that, they controlled the TV. So we had to watch all the programs, the variety shows or whatever comedy
Lawrence
shows.
Welk, I had to sit through Lawrence Welk.
Yep. We used to watch Lawrence Welk. We used to watch Andy Williams. We used to watch Dean Martin, Carol Burnett.
I love
those.
Yeah.
Those were the shows my parents loved.
Ricky and Lucy.
The funniest thing is listening to my dad watching those programs and crack up. I got the sense of humor from my dad, because he liked to laugh and he'd like to, joke around and stuff like that. And so it was. I got a lot from my dad. He passed away a couple of years ago, but I still miss his humor. There's nobody in my family like my dad when it came to humor. My mom was pretty funny too, but my dad had a really great sense of humor. And I think me and him are the only ones really that picked it up. Everybody else in my family is pretty serious.
No, I think my dad was more serious. My mom was the one who would crack jokes, or she liked music and dancing. How about yours, Sonia?
Yeah, my mom liked music. My dad was more of the, he had the bigger sense of humor. My mom didn't always appreciate it, but yeah.
I remember you telling us some stories about your dad.
Yeah, he was funny. I used to love to, you say about Julia, you say about your dad's, accent. Of course, my dad had one, of course, and I just thought it was the funniest thing one night. He didn't do it very often, but when I heard him swear in English, I thought it was the funniest thing.
Yes.
I was like, wow,
you son of a bitch. You want to go fly? Yeah. You go fly.
Son of a bitch. Yeah.
You motherfucker. It was.
Was he Chinese?
No, it was just accent. It was a Ricky Ricardo accent.
Oh, was it?
So yeah, to hear him swear in English, it was hysterical.
No, I think you're right, Sonia. My mom was the same way. I think my mom was. My mom loved music. In fact, I remember when I was a kid, she would be doing the laundry in the basement. I would be hanging around her, and she would be singing Mexican songs. I mean, like and one of my favorite Mexican artist is Pedro Infante. And
Oh, yeah.
he's like
Yeah.
old school. And so I listen to Pedro Infante once in a while, and it just brings memories to me and my mom in the basement as she was doing laundry and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, growing up at that time, I think our memories, I think we have better memories, I think, than other generations in the future now, because like you're right, we'd go outside, even when school, we'd go outside and play in the playground and all that, and just go to the park or whatever. Nowadays, it's so hard to go to the park without thinking you're going to be abducted or something,
Well,
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
Well, my mom was really strict. Girls versus boys. She had different rules for each.
Did you live in a very violent area, or?
Well, when we originally moved into the one that I remember more is when we lived on Hamlin. So it was predominantly Italian when we first moved in. And there was only 2 Hispanic families. It was myself and another, the Gonzalez's down the street, which is my friend Jesse. You've met Jesse. And they are a family of like 11 or 12. And so we were the only ones on the family and on that block. So we were looking for other kids our age. But my mom would only let us out in the front if she was watching us. We could only be outside. We couldn't be outside alone, because she didn't want anyone to get mad at us or accuse us of doing something wrong. She wanted to be the one sitting there watching us. Even if we went by family's house, we could not move from her side unless she gave us permission. We'd have to ask permission to go play. But there's 9 of us at one point at home, and mainly it was 6 of us. So she was very strict with us. Whereas nowadays, the kids get to go off and do whatever they want.
Right.
We had more structure.
Right.
You couldn't talk on the phone with your friends for a long time. You only had one phone. It was one landline, and that was it. You had to make sure the phone was available for emergencies. It wasn't there to be talked on. It was just a whole different way of living, and you watched wholesome shows on TV because of what your parents picked. There wasn't a lot of violence. You went to the movies for that stuff. And half the time, I don't know that my parents really knew what we went to the movies to go see.
Well, and it's funny because nowadays, when you go to the movies, like I take my grandkids to the movies once in a while, and we'll go to a show, and they'll have all the stuff, the concession, all that. But back in the day when we went to this is like in the late, no, maybe early 80s.
Drive-in.
Yeah, they had drive-ins and stuff like that. I don't know I don't think we did the drive-in thing like maybe once or twice when we were kids. But when me and my older sister had a chance, we would go to the theater. My mom would drop us off. Mom or dad would drop us off at the theater.
But did they ever ask you what movie you were going to see? I don't remember them.
I don't remember them asking us.
So
no,
we went and saw that.
But think about it though. We were back then rated R or anything, and there weren't really a lot of ratings back then. Think about it. The ratings didn't really start till later on. I don't know the exact date, but I don't think everything was. There was no rated X, or there was rated R maybe, but we knew about it. We didn't go out to the movie theaters and see rated R movies. Me and my sister went to see movies that were, like fun or sci-fi or stuff like that, or comedy. We would go to a movie theater, and, at that time they had the multiplexes, you know what I mean? And so you'd go to one movie, they really couldn't check you. So me and my sister would spend like the whole day and go to movie after movie after movie.
See, they didn't have that in the city. It was one theater.
No, see, we had, yeah.
The movie houses.
Yeah, they had movie house, and that was it.
Right. Well, we grew up in suburbs, but I'm thinking, okay, that was probably in the mid 80s.
Okay, because
to the 90s.
Like, we would go to Tiffin Theater. There's Logan Square.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of the other ones, which don't exist anymore.
Logan doesn't exist anymore?
Logan exists.
Yeah, I thought
it still there?
Yeah.
They renovated it.
Holy cow.
And there's another one on Western that I think they're renovating again, but it was never.
There's a Montclair that doesn't, I don't know if it's still there. Will Rogers, I think.
No, I think
Is it
Will
up
Rogers is
north?
gone. Will Rogers
Yeah.
is gone. Yeah.
I think that's where we saw our first Star Wars movie.
We did a paranormal thing years ago on I think it was on Western. I forgot what theater it was.
Well, which theaters did you go to, Sonia?
There was one by my house, no longer exists. It was Royal. That was the biggest one. Because it was right there on Milwaukee, right by Milwaukee and
wasn't it
Wood.
the one that turned into an X-rated one?
No, that's Oak. That's the one. That's on
the
Western and
Admiral.
Armitage. That's Western and Armitage, the Oak Theater.
You're talking about the Admiral Theater.
Yeah, all of those.
And I'll tell you, I've been there.
Cochino.
you have to
But
put
in all honesty, like when we used to, like, even if my parents would have asked me what movie I was going to, like, they wouldn't have known. Like, I could have told them anything.
Right?
There was no way for them to check, and probably maybe the language thing, they didn't understand. I was like, okay, well, whatever, and I actually
and I'm trying
had
to
a.
figure out, how did we figure out what movies we're playing?
All right,
Asset, right?
all right. Here's
There's no directory.
here's a good one. When back in the 70s, the late 70s, when Saturday Night Fever came out, I think I've said this story before. My parents, there used to be a restaurant, I forgot what it was called, Cattle Company or something like that. And you'd go there. If you had dinner, they'd give tickets to the Yorktown Cinema that was right next to the restaurant. So if you had a dinner or bought dinner or whatever, they would give you tickets to the movie theater. So we ended up having dinner. We went to see Saturday Night Fever, thinking it was a dance movie, like Singing in the Rain or whatever, like my parents thought it was. And so then we all sat down there, and when that scene in the car, when John Travolta's getting a blowjob, my parents put their hands on us and to obviously shield us from what was going on, but they had no clue. They thought it was a clean, wholesome movie. We all thought so too, because we were kids. But and that's the thing. Sometimes at that time, you didn't know what kind of movie it was. You know what I mean? And so we also went to see Live and Let Die with Roger Moore there. But my mom, I remember that was her favorite James Bond movie. But James Bond, you knew was not going to be dirty, even though the insinuation was there. But you knew it was not going to be dirty.
I remember going with my mom when we were older, where I was driving. But when we were younger, I remember being dropped off, and my brothers and sisters loved horror movies. I hated them.
I love.
They used to complain, but my mom said, "You go. You got to take the younger ones with you." So they always had to drag us with. But they knew I didn't like them, so I would sit there with a hood over my face the entire time. And I remember them dragging me to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh my God!
I was so mad because I did not want to go, but my mother said I had to go because that was her rule. You take the younger ones with you.
Right.
My God.
To this day, I still have not seen that movie.
Oh no.
Yeah, I don't see. I don't like slasher movies. I like horror movies, like paranormal type movies, but slasher movies.
Now slasher, agreed.
Yeah, I can't do.
I'm there
slasher
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Julia, to answer your question, I remember like finding out about movies because my dad had a newspaper subscription, the Sun Times. So we would look on the newspaper and in the movie section, and it would have all the movies listed. And then sometimes if it didn't have the show times on there, you had the number, and you would call. Then you had to listen to the recording of what time, and then that's how you figured it out.
Yeah. You're right, because we used to do the same thing. We would go always to the Sun Times, and there was a section with all the movies. They don't have that now, do they?
No, and that's something that obviously we as boomers.
We had the TV guide too.
We had a TV guide. We don't have any of that. I mean, some of the things. Like I went through a list of things that the boomers have that people today don't. Okay, so here, obviously, the green stamps. Remember those, Sonia?
Yes, the books. It was my job to get them all in the books.
Right, and that's the way we, like when we had to do chores, and we had to take the bottles in. We get money, And I think that my parents, when they went shopping, they got stamps. So we would fill those the booklets up, and then we'd get merchandise.
Yep.
Okay, that ended in '86. Believe it or not.
What was the company that did that? Was it Sears?
Green? It was called S&H Green Stamps.
Stamps.
That was the actual company?
That was the actual company that did that, yeah. The other thing, too, is drive-ins. We had drive-ins. Today, there's very few, if any. Obviously, the wide world of sports. Remember that on TV?
Howard Cosell.
Howard Cosell. Yeah, so I mean, that's stuff that they don't have, obviously, the shows Bonanza, Wild Wild West, Big Valley, stuff that doesn't exist
Poncho
anymore.
and Cisco.
Yeah, right, yeah. What was that, the cowboy with the white hat?
Long Ranger.
The Long Ranger, yeah, the Long Ranger, yeah.
That was one of my dad's favorites.
Yeah.
Rotary phones. Rotary phones.
Yeah, we had rotary, but we went to push button right away.
No. I mean, I still remember rotary phones. Sonia, do you remember rotary?
Yeah, and we would use a pencil.
Yeah.
Or the back end of a pen to...
And you know, back in the day, also, you could smoke on planes. You can't do that now.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be able to smoke at work and in data centers. You can't do that anymore.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And even on TV. Do you guys remember seeing like the newscasters? Yeah. They would give the news and they would be smoking.
And you can't advertise billboards for tobacco. Right. So Encyclopedia Britannica. I worked, believe it or not, when I was a teenager, I worked for Encyclopedia Britannica in a telemarketing firm, and we would sell Encyclopedia Britannicas.
They don't go door to door? Because that was a thing too.
Yeah, that was door. No, we worked in a call center, and that was I think in the 90s. Yeah, that was in the 90s.
Or worse, do you remember your local grocery stores or certified grocers? They would also give you stamps, and you would collect those stamps, and then you can actually trade those in to get the different volumes of encyclopedias. I have a Funkin' Wagnall.
I do remember that. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, the dishes.
Yes. Yes, I remember the dishes.
Well, remember, me and Julie have talked about this before. Woolworths used to have a luncheon counter, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so you'd be able to go there and have lunch. And was that the first one that you remember that had that? Because there was so many, I think, back in the 20s and 30s.
I remember it because when I was younger, I used to have rashes on my legs. So my mom took me to Children's Memorial all the time. And I was on a bus. My mom traveled everywhere.
Is it because of Woolworths?
No. And so when my older sister would go with, and she knew my mom would always afterwards take us to go get food or go eat. And it was a treat because it was just like the two or three of us. So and her thing was, tell mom, let's go get some grilled cheese from Woolworths. And that's where we would go. Right. Because it was a trip. It was the 5 and Dime Diner. So it was very cheap. And that's that's why I remember it. And my sister still to this day remembers. Yeah, I remember I tell mommy you're hungry. Tell mommy you're hungry so we can go eat.
Wow. Did Goldblatt's have something like that or no?
Oh, they may have. Goldblatt's was pretty big.
Right.
Yeah. I think they had just like, they had like a little food, from what I remember, the Goldblatt's my mom went to, they had like a little food area where they had like the corn dogs and then they had popcorn. And Montgomery Ward's also had something like that. And then Montgomery Ward's had the bargain basement where you could find like the weirdest things or the discontinued last seasons or stuff that was clearanced out.
Yeah. There was, I think Sears also had something like that. And
they had their outlet stores like in the park.
Yeah, but because I think the big one was in Oak Brook, right? The Sears.
Yeah, that
Sears Oak Brook. I remember going to a big Sears store in Oak Brook. But the other one too that had like a food area or whatever was Kmart. Kmart had also the same.
Yeah, they had a little diner.
Yeah, they had like a little dining area. Yeah, all that's gone. I mean, they replaced it obviously with the malls, and they have food courts and all that. But I mean, the stores that thinking back to obviously nostalgia, those were the stores that had like little diners within them.
Yep.
You know, so those, yeah, I remember that.
All the old stores are gone. Zehrs.
Right, yeah.
What was the other one? Ventures.
Turnstile.
Oh my God, Turnstile was before Ventures.
Mm-hmm.
Turnstile. What was Turnstile?
Yes, it was like a Ventures, but it was
Really?
before.
Yeah.
It was before Ventures.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
It
one
was
at
the
all.
first one was near the Brickyard in Chicago.
So was that
It
just
was a big
Chicago?
deal.
I don't know, but I remember Turnstile was there because my sister worked there, Deborah.
Okay.
And I remember my brothers having to go meet her after work to, just so she had company coming home because she had to take a bus. So they went and drove a car to go pick her up. They actually got stopped by cops and said that they were out after curfew. And they were like, hey, we just went to go pick her up from work. We weren't out. We had curfews. They don't have curfews now.
Right.
And they were going to take them into the police station, but they kind of talked them out of it. And back then, there were cops known to be pulling girls over and kind of.
Well, I mean,
This was like late 70s.
Right. Remember that cop that was, he's already passed, but I forgot, he was a bad cop. And remember, there was some trials in Chicago that this guy did all sorts of illegal stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm,
the cops are bad back then.
I mean, so I think that's why,
Yeah, they were.
going out at night was, no, you didn't go out at night. The girls were not allowed to go out before they were 18.
Right.
And you couldn't leave the house unless you were married. So it was your job to stay at home and do what Mama said. How about you, Sonia?
My parents were strict. I think they got more strict as I got older. Weirdest thing. But
I wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder why. But yeah, I got in trouble a lot. I had curfew, but I got in trouble a lot. So I didn't always make curfew. I mean, there was just too many people to see and too many things to do. So.
Well,
But
let me ask you a question.
was-
You went to church every Sunday, right?
Yeah, I got to an age and then I was like, yeah, no, I'm done with that. And then it was like, okay. So at some point, parents figure it out that they don't have total control like they think they do.
Right.
So if you say no, like, when you get to a point where like they're not going to kick your butt,
right.
So
My mother never she didn't care. She didn't care how old you were.
Yeah.
Oh, you always went to church every Sunday? We did too. We went to church every Sunday.
And I think until I was like actually got married, and then I didn't have to.
Yeah, I think. Well, even after I got married, I think I still went to church. I didn't stop going to church. I still go to church. But sometimes I'm just a little bit more flexible on my Sundays, and with football and stuff like that, I just kind of God will understand.
What was your most memorable event growing up, Sonia? Like
My most memorable.
Historic wise.
Historically, the moon landing, and so now my heart is broken because apparently it was all a hoax. But I remember watching the moon landing in 1969 in July of that year.
You remember that?
I do.
We were like,
I was
5?
watching it on. Yeah, I was. My brother and I were watching it on this tiny little black and white TV, and I was just, my mouth was hanging open because I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that like men were on the moon. Like it was, being obviously 5 years old, it was such a.
It wasn't a hoax, was it?
No.
Well, that's what they're saying.
I don't think
it was all a hoax.
I don't believe it was a hoax. No. Mm-mm.
But I remember watching that.
I mean, it would be so elaborate of a hoax that it would just be.
Yeah, because they just showed pictures of the moon. It looks the same.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe it was a hoax. I mean, those same people are probably the mega, people that believe in, that Trump is the greatest of ever. So.
John actually at a podcast event in Florida just this January. A woman does believe the world is flat.
Yeah, there was a woman who actually believes the world is flat.
Yes.
I'm like, and I asked her, I said, so at what point do we fall off? She couldn't. She couldn't answer. But her husband doesn't believe that. I'm like, okay, how do you live with somebody that believes that the world is flat? But they believe someone. Yeah. So it's like, you meet every type of person if you bump into people, you're going to meet somebody who has completely out of these world ideas. You know what I mean? So So anyway,
I know. I think we grew up in a time where there was more structure, more discipline, more family interaction because we had no choice.
I totally agree.
But we had religion, we had values, and we were raised to have respect for other people.
Right.
Because we had discipline.
Exactly.
Right. One thing about my parents are very good at keeping our family together. You know what I mean? And that's something that I've always thought of. Now is completely kind of a different story because all of us siblings we have our own mind, we have our own direction, and some of them are out there in La La Land. So I don't really what's the word? Or what's the phrase? What they gave us, and our way of thinking, I think was good. I think what everybody does, once they grow up and have their own ideology, that's their thing.
But on the other hand, because we grew up in a strict environment, when we had our own kids, we gave them leeway. And in that aspect, I wonder if that's where we kind of did a disservice to our kids.
No. Because
they were able to have a little more room for choice. And they don't have the tradition and the value that we had growing up.
Maybe you're right. A little of that. I think that, like with my daughter, I think that I gave her enough. She had so many different people though, giving her, raising her because come from a divorced family. And so, she had her mom, she had me, she had my family to give her different points of view and all that. So sometimes when you grow up with so many different things, you grow up to have your own, either to dislike that or to dislike that or to like that or whatever. So you kind of gather all the information and you become who you're going to become. I think my parents gave me what I needed at that time, and I became a better person. And, and I'm way different than anybody in my family. I'll tell you that much, so, I mean, good or bad, I don't know, but I'm a completely different person.
I think we're all individuals. I mean,
right.
I'm different than my other siblings. I was the only one who went to a Catholic high school. And that was just due to the fact that I'm so light complected.
I'm the only one that hit a nun.
Well, that's why you were sent away. But I mean, I think maybe because of my experience going to a Catholic high school, I'm a different person.
Right.
Because I wasn't raised the same way as they were in public school. I don't know.
Sonia, what do you think? I mean, as far as has growing up the where you did and how you did defined you?
I think nature and nurture. Yeah. I think definitely my surroundings, the nurture part played a huge part. I'm definitely nothing how my parents were brought up, different country, different. And I think every generation is just, it differs because of you get the fundamental values, but your world really does play a part, your experiences in who you ultimately become. Mm-hmm. My parents could not relate to my world that I was growing up in. With my children, I found it, in some ways hard, although, we're both born and bred here in America, but their social structure was different. And I find myself at a true loss when I hear my granddaughter talk about some of the things that, she is experiencing and seeing, with her friend group and, and what's going on in her world. And I'm like, I'm lost sometimes. She's going to be 15 soon. And
wow, already.
Yeah. And so sometimes like, how do I even relate to that? So I think every generation, depending on what society looks like and how that impacts them, right, has a definite bearing on, shaping them. and shaping us. So
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, it's like anything else. It's, as time goes on, you kind of, it's funny because I think we're going backwards in society. I think that, one of the things that I saw today, as far as like the list of boomers, is like when they signed the Civil Rights Act and all that. And guess what? We have an administration that's trying to do away with everything, trying to basically do away with history. And so, what is going to be left for the future when, we have people who think so one dimensional and are so
one dimension.
One dimensional. Yeah. Yeah.
He's dementia.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so sad to see what the future is going to hold for us because we're going backwards. We're not going forward. We're not,
They want us to go backwards where
exactly.
they had more control.
They want to control us. They want to hold us to where they can.
Could you imagine if they had that birthright citizenship? They didn't have it when we were growing up. We wouldn't be here.
That's nuts.
We would not be here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, my parents wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here.
Right.
So it's terrible to see what other people, I mean, we're kind of lucky because, we were born here and, we are, we have birthright here. But imagine the newborns that are born now that, let's say they do this birthright BS. Do these kids have a home? Are these kids born that are from one parent from here and one parent from there? Are they going to be able to stay here, or are they going to get deported as a newborn to another country that they have no clue what it is? That's just nuts and insane. And that's the exact thing that these people want to do is control the narrative. They want to control, how we vote, how we eat, what we look at. It's like communism. That's basically what it is. It's socialism, communism that this administration is trying to portray in this government. And this has got to stop. It really does. So anyway, that's just me going off.
What was your most biggest event that you remember?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's so many. I mean, I invented the McDonald's drive-thru when I was a kid.
That was your biggest event?
I mean, before the drive-thru was real popular.
Yours is you had a car crash.
Yeah, I crashed into my parents' Electra 7 whatever, 928 or whatever. I took it. I was like 16, 17 years old. And my parents let me take it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to McDonald's. So I went through like all this patio stuff and all that, thinking I was putting my foot on the brake and it was the accelerator and right through the patio stuff. And I was like, I was so scared. I went home. The cops were already sitting there waiting for me.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I think my big event was Elvis dying.
That was big too.
That was like, I remember going to school like, oh my God, he died. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was big too. I mean, there's so many deaths that we could go, that's a whole different show. But I mean, yeah, Elvis dying was pretty big. I remember I was in my older sister's room and we were looking out the window and somebody had said that Elvis had died. And I can tell you exactly that me and her were looking out the window. I don't know why we were looking out the window, but that's the moment that that somebody said Elvis had died. And I'm like, oh my God. And I was a big Elvis fan. I really was.
You still are.
I still am. I'm still a big fan. Oh, that's why I like Bruno Mars so much because he kind of reminds me of that, that swagger, But yeah, Elvis, I was a big Elvis fan. We've gone to Graceland, and that was fun, right, Julia?
I was.
Yeah,
it was.
It was a lot of fun, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we do it again.
It really was.
Anyway, so Sonia, well, thank you for being on our show today.
Thank you for the invite.
You're welcome. We've got to do this again because we have so much we could talk about. I mean,
now that we know we can do a phone a friend.
Well, everything that we're doing right now is just kind of like, there's going to be more. I mean, we're expanding on this. We're going to be able to do video on video and stuff like that. So it's just going to continue to get better. So next week's show is a big one. We're going to have, hopefully, we're putting this together. It's going to be a show of families in local theater. My daughter is in a play, that I saw last Friday. It was a remarkable play. I can't remember the title, but it's Time and Date or something like that. It was a fantastic show. She was remarkable in it. The whole cast was good. The play itself was very good. I was very impressed. I thought it was going to be a boring play, to be honest, going into it. I was telling my niece, but it turned out to be a fantastic show. It was the Village Theater in Glen, Ellyn, and it was a very good show. I loved it. So anyway, so her mom is also in theater. She's been in a lot of theaters. I've been in plays. So we're all going to talk about local theater, how it's affected our lives, how it affected generations, and maybe we'll have another guest. We're going to have Joey hopefully here, and Jessica, obviously. So we'll see you next week, and thank you for listening. You've been listening to Genizus Us Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Gen Is Us podcast. Make sure to subscribe everywhere podcasts are available and follow us on our Instagram and YouTube at Gen Is Us Podcast. We want to hear from you, the listeners. Send us any feedback or questions that you would like 3 generations to answer at contact@genizus.com. Thank you.